Let's look at what a real-time sampling oscilloscope does with a periodic signal and then with a data signal. So first with the periodic signal, here we have a nice sinusoid and we're sampling this, and you can see that the samples are coming at regular sampling times. So there's not the rearming time and then a small perturbation after each rearming time. Now when I look at the delta t between samples, the delta t is between consecutive instants of time. So between the first and the third I have 2 delta t, and there's no folding going on that we saw in the equivalent time. Now each sample represents a specific point in time, an exact point in time, and not one that must be folded in order to interpret what the samples mean. So if I take, as before, the samples from my digital sampling oscilloscope, my real-time oscilloscope, and I run a spline through those points, I can reconstruct the received signal in almost continuous time because I have samples that are real time. And we saw before that in the equivalent time oscilloscope, this would not work at all because of the folding going on. So what happens for digital signals? So I have a digital signal here. We see a logical 1, 2 logical 0s, 3 logical 1s, and I'm sampling it again, and the samples are consecutive one after the other, which allows me to capture the pulse exactly as it is, all of the samples on the same pulse, on the same bit that was transmitted. So this allows me to reconstruct the received data signal. This is why we pay extra for the real-time oscilloscope, is to be able to have a true real-time copy of the received signal that we can manipulate in offline processing. So, of course, if we compare, the delta t's here are real distances between sampling, whereas in the equivalent time one, it was the perturbation and not the actual sampling time. So if we reconstruct all of these points, we can also fold them. If we want to fold them, we can fold them and create an eye diagram. So we can do the same thing that we did with the equivalent time oscilloscope, but we can do it also with the real time. So periodic signals and eye diagrams, a real-time oscilloscope works well, but an equivalent time would have done just as well. So we don't use a real-time oscilloscope for periodic signals or eye diagrams because it's just too expensive. We use it when we need signal reproduction, when we want to be able to run offline processing. So the equivalent time would give us, for a given bandwidth, it would have a lower noise floor. It would have a higher dynamic range, more bits in each sampling time, less quantization. It would have less jitter. It would cost much less. So if the only thing I'm interested in is characterizing periodic signals in eye diagrams, then I use the equivalent time scope. I don't use the real-time oscilloscope, even though I could. So real-time oscilloscopes we can use for some very important processing. We can use it, for instance, to estimate the bit error rate on our data signals. I'll be talking about that application, but of course there are others that are enabled by a real-time oscilloscope. So in bit error rate estimation, what do? We take bits of a known sequence. M here just means message I'm sending through. I put it through my system. I receive it on a real-time oscilloscope, because on a real-time oscilloscope I can reconstruct the bits that I've received. I can do bit error rate estimation because of that. So I have real-time capture. Then, as I mentioned, I've saved all the samples to the scope. Now I take all the samples from the scope and I go and I do some offline processing. I do my linear sampling receiver, for instance, or whatever receiver I want to. But I just do my offline processing that simulates, that mimics the system that I'm trying to explore. So one thing I can do is I can synchronize the received signal, R of t, with the message transmitted. Suppose that this message is an M sequence. that it's a PRBS and I know what it is, then I can do that autocorrelation function here, so I know which of my bits transmitted corresponds to what bit in the decision after my offline processing. So because I've done that synchronization, when I make a bit decision, I have my estimate, M hat, of the message transmitted, and I can count errors. I can compare what was transmitted with my estimate of what is transmitted, and that allows me to estimate the bit error rate. So I push my bits through the hardware, then I push it through the offline processing in order to come up with a bit error rate estimate. So both a hardware component and an offline signal processing component in the bit error rate estimation. Another important use of real-time sampling oscilloscopes is the use of equalization of data signals. Any kind of signal processing can be done offline when I use a real-time oscilloscope, and I'll be talking about equalization as a very important aspect that we can use. So we have our real-time oscilloscope, and in blue is the true signal, and in yellow is the one that we're able to reconstruct in our using our RTO samples. So if we notice in the blue, there could be some overshoots, there could be some imperfections in the actual pulse shape that I might want to compensate for. And these things I can learn from the yellow, the sampled version. So the sampled version is close enough to the continuous time version that I can infer information about the correlation among the data that has been transferred. Correlation not from the underlying data, because the underlying data is uncorrelated, but correlations introduced by the channel, introduced by the distortion. So to do that, I might do what's called channel estimation. So I have here a system. This is my channel, and this channel has a certain frequency response, H channel, and I could use my knowledge of the synchronization, for example, use the knowledge of the data to estimate what was this channel. Why would I want to do that? Well, once I know what the channel is, I can create a filter that minimizes the mean squared error if I use it to improve the signal quality. And it's based on just having an idea of what that channel is and the level of noise that's present. So I use my knowledge of what was transmitted, estimate this channel, estimate the noise, and then I can create this filter. Now, I'm doing offline processing. So what I can do is I can actually put that filter in to improve the quality of my signal, to reduce the distortion, so I make fewer errors. So I can find the coefficients of this filter using the equations I showed you before. I can put it in the time domain if I want to implement it that way, but I can filter my signal in order to improve it. So this is what we call channel equalization. I put in a filter in my post-processing, in my offline signal processing, that is going to improve the performance of my system. So there are many ways that we can do equalization. For instance, I could do more realistic estimation of the coefficients of the filter than what I described earlier. So I don't necessarily have to know my complete knowledge of what was transmitted in order to create this estimate of the channel and then go on to put in these filter coefficients. I could instead use some small portion of my knowledge that would imitate a training sequence. And I could find the coefficients based on just the training sequence. And then I could actually estimate the bit error rate over all the other bits. So I have a whole long string of this PRBS. I take a small segment of it. I use that knowledge of that small segment, that training sequence, to train and find the coefficients of this filter. I put the filter in place, and then I measure the bit error rate. So it's basically the same procedure I used before, but instead of using all of the data, I use a portion of it. And this might better reflect the performance of the system under test in a deployed system where we don't want to use a lot of overhead. We want to use a small training sequence. So then the next thing I can do is I wonder instead of doing post-processing, suppose I put an FIR filter at the transmitter. So that's another kind of equalization, a pre-equalization. And what I can do is I take my estimate at the end, that I've already discussed how I might do it, and once I know the coefficients here, I could just, instead of applying it at this endpoint, I can move it and apply it earlier inside of the FIR. So experimentally, I put it through once, I estimate it, then I could put it into my transmitter. So this, of course, if I wanted to put it in here, I'd have to have something that I could program with what I discovered during my experiment, what I discovered the coefficients should be, and then put them in here. But this pre-equalization requires a digital to analog converter. And as I mentioned previously, we don't have this in our teaching lab, which is why we will be doing equalization always in post-processing rather than pre-processing. So, for instance, in one of the experiments, we'll be deliberately putting into an impairment in our system, and I'll be asking you to create an equalizer in post-processing that does impairment mitigation. So, offline equalization with an RTO can be done in many ways. One way is estimation of the channel and the noise power. If I estimate the channel frequency response and the noise power, I can calculate what would be the minimum mean squared error equalizer. Of course, that might be one way of doing it, but another way is adaptation, to find the coefficients of the MMSC filter by doing either data-aided or decision-directed. Data-aided is knowledge of the transmitted data. And the knowledge of the transmitted data, I showed you one way of calculating it if you estimate the channel, but there's another way that you can just take the data received and do an adaptation. You could use all of the data, which is kind of cheating, but it's good if you want to just eliminate something. Like you have one component in the lab that is just not ideal, and it's not what you want to test. You want to test something entirely different. So you might use all your knowledge possible, all the side information you have, all the data, to just try and correct that component you have to live with. So there are times when using all the data available makes sense. Another time you might just want to use a training sequence. You might want to create something that's more like a deployed system. So those are both data aided. You can also use your offline signal processing to test using decision directed. This is where you put your receiver in place, it makes data decisions, data guesses, and you assume that those guesses are true, and you use that to train to adapt the coefficients of your equalizer. So even if it's the same equalizer, the same minimum mean squared error equalizer, there's different ways that you can actually implement that and test what is the bit error rate under these different kinds of implementation of the same filter or the same filtering approach. So there are many equalizer types that can be used, and we will investigate various types of equalizers in post-processing.